So it was specifically the unique value proposition for the consumer, not so much the agent or recruitment side of it, but what sets your real estate business apart from other real estate businesses in the consumer's eye, such that no other real estate company can claim that component. So we all have really great service, and we all have really great systems, and we all have really great agents and culture and those sorts of things. But because everyone can claim that, it no longer makes it unique. We have unique cultures and things that are great, but unless there's a component of your culture that no one else can easily replicate, duplicate, or claim, I don't find it as something that's necessarily unique. So that's the question that I have, is what are other areas? And the point I'll bring up is that you don't have to. And the reason I think it's good we share in this type of group format, because I don't think anybody's in necessarily the same market. So you can be unique in your individual market. Doesn't mean that is a unique component from every other real estate company in the world. So, again, it's just for your specific market that you have to be unique at. So that's where we can share and hopefully learn best practices or best opportunities that others can maybe say, okay, well, I don't have one yet. And if that one is something that I think resonates with us, and we can maybe do that one as well.
So what is
the example?
No, before you go into the example, what's the purpose of this?
Well, I think it's product differentiation. So it allows the consumer to differentiate why I should choose you over any other agency, but also for your marketing component, what you're marketing. You should be marketing what makes you different. And speaking to that specific consumer, we know, we have an avatar, we know who our target market is, target demographic is, et cetera. Identifying and sharing that message or conveying that message of what makes us different. And again, I have examples from my previous field, previous industry, but I think it was, I want to say it's easier, but it was, something that we hyper focused on every single strategy meeting that we had every month, to ensure that we're staying leaps and bounds above or apart from competition, so that they can never bridge that gap and get a competitive edge. And I think as we are in this market, this shifting market, and we're looking at market share, this is an opportunity to gain and gather more market share when players are going to be getting out of the business. And, we can just further widen that gap if we have that gap, or close the gap if we, are kind of the laggards there.
Okay. And then what were the examples you were going to give?
Yeah. So again, from my previous century or decade of in the health club, century felt like a century, decade of in the health club industry, we were a large health club here in town. Our UVPs we had 3 locations. Nobody else could claim they had 3 locations. We had on-site physical therapy. Nobody else had that. We had an indoor pool. Nobody else had that. We had over 1,000 classes a month. Nobody could claim that they had that. We had, we were 24/7. Nobody else could do, staffed 24/7. So people then became 24/7, and then we were the only ones that were staffed. Everybody else had key card access. There were no employees on staff. We had employees there. So those are just a handful of those things. And that was our marketing, right? We were and it was only. And so people saw that and said, oh, wow, that's something that I would value. But they have to be value. That's why they're unique value proposition. So it can't just be, we're the only one with, 65, ceiling fans or something like that. Like, okay, that may not be of value. You may be the only one to claim that, but nobody cares, right? So it has to be something that people care about, and that's where it's important to know your target demographic too, because you're going to need to know what their needs and wants are, so you can answer those with that value.
Yeah. So to bring it back to and I want you to continue this conversation, Noah and Paula. And yeah, I do want to intervene and go to bring it back to the book. So chapter 4 is talking about the experiment. So when you read that, literally what you're talking about, the opportunity is the hypothesis on value. So the value hypothesis, and then the growth hypothesis. So the value is it something the customers value? We need to test that in any decision you're coming up with. And then the growth, is it something that's scalable, repeatable, that we can make bigger? Which in your gym scenario and cases, right, you discovered some of those were valuable, which is why you kept them. And then you focused on them in such a way and tested it to see, is it something scalable where we can continue? And you decided 3 locations were enough. So just so everyone's aware, the very first thing is when you build, measure, learn, that's kind of the triangle, if you picture it, of a startup, like when you're coming up with that. What Noah's describing the first section, when we build it, is figuring out, is there value there? Can we test it? And then going into, is it scalable? How do we grow through that?
Well, I think, and you brought up a good point there, starting with actually learn, right? Learning what people want, or what their pain points are, or what their barriers to entry are, then build it, and then measure it, right? So I think it is important to where you started that, but I think right now we're in that learn category. We're in that learn phase of like, well, what is it that people are looking for that you can do differently? I think I kind of brought this up. Maybe it was last time, or maybe it was in the masterminds in Tennessee, but was the multiple products related to real estate. So you may be the only real estate team that also owns a, cleaning company, or a property management company, or landscape company, or, these other concierge or supporting businesses to the home, to the real estate industry. So, again, in your market, that may be something unique and valuable because it's a turnkey product. But again, that's kind of where I wanted to see, like, well, what has worked? Has anybody identified that?
Could I step in as a participant? It's kind of fun for me, like a role change, like as a, not as a coach, but as like a DO. I would love to tell you just as some actual tactical examples of what my team used in the past, and then also some things I've seen my clients use. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah. Not from like I'm going to tell you about chapter 3 or something, but from just like a literal tactical piece. Okay. At least Paula shook her head yes too. So I got 2 of you to agree that was okay. So in my market, like specifically in my team, there's a lot of like not large property tracts, but like mid-size. So it's like 1 acre and there's a septic, or there's not, like it was very hard to comp my market, right? So our main demographic is hard to comp. So then you're talking about like, what's your local, like your real life value proposition? We positioned ourselves in appointments, right? That even though your properties will have no comps, and these lenders are going to be sending people from out of the area, which means the appraisers will not know the area. We have a plan to make sure that your property, because if we're on the listing side, that it's appraised correctly. And here's what it is. So like we put together a pre-appraisal package for the appraiser. We meet them at the listing. We hand them that package. We use appraiser language to explain the comps and the adjustments. We have an actual appraiser that we consult with for when we're doing the adjustments up front. And we have a success rate at getting your property to be appraised at value of X, right? So that was like a unique to our area, like you actually needed this service and we were telling you how we provided it, and nobody else in our area is providing this kind of service. So you're more likely to come in like like with the buyer needing to bring cash for the difference or not getting appraised when you don't use us. So that's one unique value, like literal, like tactical example. Another one we used on our team was we took what was actually just our standards, and we made sure that our clients understood that it was actually a unique value proposition to them from the chair they were sitting in. So if they were a buyer, for instance, we would say, listen, our team, we have a team of 20 agents, and we make on average, like last week, for instance, we made 20,000 calls out to communities looking to match listings off market with buyers we have coming in. So when you hire our team, you have this team of people calling, looking for actual properties that would fit your needs. Don't see the house you want to buy today? No problem. Our team is literally out making this many calls on a regular basis to find that home. And to bring that into today's market, I've seen teams that I coach tweak that to be like, are you tired of being like the 20th person to view this home? We're really good at finding off-market listings to pair you with so that you will be the only offer. So that would be a unique value proposition in this market, right? Buyer fatigue, they don't want to lose out on another multiple offer situation. If your team gets really, really good at matchmaking off-market, that's a unique value proposition for the market we're in. Like that's what people want to hear. Other ones I've seen from clients would be in-house, like, again, totally local. So these would just keep that in mind, but like, hey, we're really, really, really good at comping out island properties. So you got to take an hour ferry to get to your island, and we know how to comp that out really well. Like stick in anything, right? Like we know how to comp your weird situation, your $32 million ranch or whatever it is. Percent buyers that come from the database is another, that's one we used personally. So, hey, we sell 80% of our listings to people that came straight out of our database. So we've got a robust enough database that we're likely to sell it just to the people who already know us, which is just what we do for a living. But when you know the stat becomes a unique value proposition. So like we already know your buyer probably. So circle dials, calls to neighborhoods, door knocks, even on the listing side. So taking it from the buyer's perspective to the seller's chair, unique value proposition would also be, hey, we're going to call this many homes. We're going to door knock this many homes to actually sell your listing. Again, that's kind of like the 72 sold idea. It's what anyone can do. But the truth is in your market, people probably aren't doing something as robust as you're willing to do. So, you know, what do you do that gets it done? Let's see, what else did I do? In-house lender, I've seen that be a unique selling proposition. So, hey, we've got this in-house lender, like we work hand in glove. I can go stand on his desk if he's delaying, like we're sure to get you to closing on time, etc. Did I get them all off of my list? Oh, off-market matchmaking, which I kind of said already, but like, you know, how is your team in this market off-market matchmaking? Like, are you sending golden letters to find people's perfect match? Just like, what are you doing to actually match up the buyer with a property in this tight inventory situation we're in?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for those, Megan. Those get the wheels turning a little bit. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's just my like short list, but I think almost anything can be a unique value proposition if you guys position, you know, your data and like you position it that way, which is what I loved about the 72 sold. I don't know if y'all saw that at family reunion, but honestly, he was just telling people what like half of agents do. He understood how to position it as, a lot of us across the country do this, but probably a lot of people in his market don't, right? Like your average competitor's not doing 72 marketing items in the first 48 hours. They're just not. But if you can, that becomes a unique selling proposition. They may do those 72 things over the next 2 weeks, but if you're saying you can do those 72 things in 48 hours, you know, that's a big deal. Oh, here's another one I just thought of that I've seen. We didn't do this, but I've seen, you know, basically an offer. So like, it's just like what these companies, these tech companies are doing. It's like, hey, if we can't sell your home in 3 days, we'll buy it. Now the buy price is not the list price, but it's like an offer to purchase, which is a unique selling proposition.
And Megan just brought up a really great point, Noah. Your value proposition might change according to the market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's finding what is the consumer need in the current market, and then making sure they're aware that you have a fix for that need.
Mm-hmm.
And back to what Megan just said, a lot of people do what 72 Soul do. They're just not telling people.
Right.
What I wrote down here, because this was like our guiding principle from a marketing perspective when I was DOOing, was tell your story, like tell your company story in their words, which is like guerrilla marketing. It's not like putting a message out, but it's like guerrilla warfare. It's like a hand-to-hand. So if you're talking on the phone or across the table from somebody, the unique selling proposition almost shifts per person, because you know what you offer. You're just going to tell it to them in their own words, which is a strong, like from a neurolinguistic programming situation, like they're more likely to purchase because it proves you listened and that you can solve their problem through your strategy and then how. So they don't necessarily want to hear that you're going to do 72 things in 48 hours if their concern is that they have a weird to comp property, right? They want to hear that you know how to comp weird to comp properties. So if that's their language, you tell your story using that language.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really to me, that's the trick to what Paula just said, like the shifting value, unique value proposition. And in our, like, because we don't have like a gem, like in our situation, it's often hand to hand, like we're selling in the moment, person to person. So it's not that it shifts, but it's what's unique to that person. You have an opportunity to highlight in the moment versus having to being so clear, like we have a pool, but no other gyms have a pool. It's more like, well, what I hear you saying is you're nervous that there won't be a buyer for your listing. And let me just tell you that 80% of our buyers come from our database, which means there's an 80% chance we already know the person who will buy your home.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help? Is this like a helpful conversation?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And this is part of why I was asking what the purpose was, Noah, because what Megan's talking about is how do we walk into every appointment, right, fully armed to be able to get that buyer or seller? Or are you looking at putting something on a big billboard that's going to attract as many people to your business as possible, right? Because those are two different things.
Yes and no. I think they can go hand in hand. I mean, what you put on a billboard and promote is also something you can pull out at a listing appointment and say, you know, here's how we're different. You know, we get 103% more than asking price, you know, on our sales, or, you know, that's something that could be on a billboard, but it's also your, you know, listing to close ratio that owner or a lister or a seller may ask you at a listing appointment. So I think they're, I don't want to say one and the same, but they can apply to both.
I don't disagree with that. I guess to better phrase it is putting something on the billboard isn't going to apply to every appointment, right? It's only going to apply to a portion of them, right? So when we do mass marketing like that, we're only going for a segment of the population, and our goal is to bring more people in our door. Sure.
Yeah. Again, it's like going back to the pool example. Like, I could care less if there's an indoor pool, but some people, that is why they buy. That is why they purchase a membership, is because that you're the only place that has that, and I got no other option, so I have to go to you. And that's kind of my point there, is when you have those UVPs and multiple of them, you can switch up your advertising to cater to different people and let them know we are your only option, not to handcuff them, but if this is something you value, if this is something you like, we're your go-to person. And you know, we allow you, we applaud you to shop other people and see for yourself, but we are the only ones. And you know, again, that's it doesn't always last. And so, like in the book, it talks about pivot or persevere. And you know, again, I think there are times where you have to if it gets caught up, if somebody's able to do that and repeat that, and now they're claiming they do it, but better than you, well, you either have to pivot or you're going to have to figure out how to one up that next opportunity, or that same opportunity. So
go ahead, Janet.
I had one that has really nothing to do with real estate. And so we have some of those 105% overlasting and all of that also. But I think the one that's really interesting for us is the reason that many people join our team, actually, is that we give 25% of our profits to charity. And so we have a full-on program where we vote on the charities, and we do matching with the charities and everything. But that kind of touches every demographic. If you are a giver, that kind of is a really good reason, because you know that a significant portion of the commission you're giving back or is going back out to the community. So that's just one that hasn't been mentioned that really is not real estate related per se. So
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, cool
I could think of one in our market that, and I think even, with Keller Military is like, there's one team that's 100% veterans. And so they market that like we are the only team that has, or only real estate company that has 100% veterans employed. That's right. And so, again, if there's those, it could be personnel related, that you're the only team of all females that may cater to a certain type of buyer or seller. Any other ones that people could think of by hearing those, maybe spark some new neurons?
I have two thoughts. One, I have a team in California who, because of their market, right, they actually have a whole division that goes in and will remodel your house for you, right? So that's a huge value proposition. They'll even help you finance it, right? So if you are selling and you want to get top dollar, that's the team you go to, because they're going to have all the resources you need to get done what you need to get done. They'll advise you what needs to be done. They have the contractors to do it, and they even have the financing help to do it, right? And that works really, really well in their market. The other one, and it's more on the back end, and Megan and Zach, I don't know if you remember what team this was, but they actually had like a moving truck you could use on moving day. Yeah. Do you remember who I'm talking about? So they actually had like this added value that was kind of on the back end, rather than more on the front end or during the process. So to me, that almost made the customer experience better. I don't know if that would be why I would pick them. What are your thoughts?
I remember that. I don't know, like it is kind of more of a cherry on top kind of thing. But I guess it depends. Like I could also see, so like for instance, what are some of the most painful parts of the process, and moving is definitely one of them. So if you can go into your appointment and be like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, like we understand that moving is like the actual literal packing up of your home is one of the most challenging parts of listing, and here's how we've solved that for our clients. I think you could position it that way. You know what I mean? Like we give you moving boxes, we have a moving truck, like however you can ease that pain point. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I forget what team that was.
I know
I don't remember.
Couldn't remember either.
But I think anything could be a unique value proposition, as long as it's viewed as value not by the team but by the people. Yeah. Right? Like that's where I think you have to build it, and then you got to measure it with actual statistics, and then go through and go get feedback. What did we learn? How's it working? And how do we move forward? Because I think it changes too. Something that was unique and you had to market on may not be if competition comes on, right? I mean, think about Planet Fitness and the way it propose, and I only thought of that, Noah, because of you bringing up a gym, but look at the way Planet Fitness positioned themselves as a unique value proposition, right? And some of the things that they offered and stuff. So it's something I think you have to build, think about, measure, and then get feedback and go, all right, how do we make it better than we did before? So that could be events and inviting to events. That could be a charity event, or something could be also unique value proposition if your clients find it valuable and we talk about it and treat it as such.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the gym thing, or those kinds of things of like, I haven't really thought of the unique propositions in those realms. I wonder if there's some nuggets in those of like how they position, like maybe like, oh, and we give you a free trip in 6 months. We're sending you to Hawaii and here's the place, or whatever the case is, you know, how you do something and then down the road you get something. So that's kind of interesting to think in those terms too, that aren't really real estate related per se.
Zach, you brought up, with Planet Fitness. I think it also, there's a case there that they claimed the judgment-free zone, but because that was such an easy thing to replicate, then Crunch did it, then UFIT did it, and it was no longer your UVP, because it was just such a simple idea or process that it was unique at one point, and then they had to change and say, okay, well, I guess we're not the only one with a judgment-free, or that's claiming a judgment-free zone, because that's an opinion, right? It's nothing that somebody does aside from hitting a lunk alarm or whatever they do, but it was too easy to replicate.
First, I think it becomes unique, right? Like the reality of it is they advertise quite a bit. I think everyone could say it, but if I said judgment-free zone 24/7, my guess is more people in an area could probably name Planet Fitness than they could some of the other gyms.
Yeah, again, I guess the definition of unique, though, right, is you're the only one that does it or claims it, or I think that's where it's not anything can be unique, or I guess anything can be unique until it's not. And that's kind of where I come to, is it has to be complex enough or challenging enough to where others aren't willing to do it, that you can claim. And when people do, right, 3 locations in town, it's not going to be something that you're always going to be able to claim. I think like right now, Keller Williams in our town, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 offices. No other real estate team can claim that on the kind of grandiose level. There's 4 locations that you can find agents in to help you sell or buy your home around town. No other real estate brand can say that in our town right now. It gives us clout, I guess, for the team being represented under there.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's where that pivot comes in. But you could claim that. That was my point with Planet Fitness, is anything can be unique and everything potentially could be replicated if somebody wanted to. Now, whether they will or not is a different story. But the reality of it is you got to claim something no one else has claimed, and then pivot or change if someone else claims it, because anything could be replicated, right? Like in the Planet Fitness example, again, I could just say I'm a judgment-free zone, or I could just stay open 24/7. I've now taken away that value prop.
Well, in any stats, really, any stats could be claimed by someone. You might be number 1 this year and next year and the 3rd year, but maybe the next year someone overshadows you. So you were unique for 5 years, but then suddenly now you're not the top dog in town, is not unique anymore. So a lot of statistical stuff would be in that realm. I
see that a lot in the law industry. I mean, you see their advertisements, and they're putting their name and face everywhere. But it's what is their claim to fame right now, right? It's well, we're number 1 in these type of cases, or we collect the most money for you, or we're the only one that doesn't charge you anything until we win the case. Or so I think law is. I've looked at a lot of their guerrilla tactics recently to try and see, is there a parallel that we can gather from that.
Yeah, and like in Janet's case, which I love what she was talking about, the donation, there's a lot of teams I'm sure that donates. And yet, is anyone actually highlighting it as a value? Right? Is anyone claiming it and going, that is our value proposition, why you would want to work with us? Or like the moving truck. There may be other teams that have a moving truck, and yet is that what they're really hinging their business on and saying, this is our value proposition when you work with us? It's our big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand that we've been talking, extensively about like what are some of the unique value propositions that we can add on to a team, and like how can we make services. And I think, Zach, you mentioned like anything can be unique, right? But how do we evaluate like I mean, how do you evaluate like what's the return of investment out of these unique propositions that we're taking? Like, is there like a scheme that you guys can suggest that how we can follow based on the unique propositions that we are adding? This is the certain of return of investment that you should be getting. This is the ROI that you should be getting for each value proposition. And I know it can change from different unique proposition that you add on, but like I think it's important to quantify that, right? Like you can add any number of unique things you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not hitting the numbers, that doesn't make any sense, right?
That's interesting. I don't know that, like in our particular case, I could possibly, I mean, we're doing 25%, but considering what the ROI on that is, I don't know how you would ever consider that, because it's very esoteric of like, we're doing this. And so to say we got a client of that, I guess not knowing who's coming to us because of the reason would be really interesting to try to find an ROI on your value proposition, like in that term, I think. Right?
In your case, though, Janet, like it's a value. It's like a core value.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to go like spin. You're not doing it to get.
I know, exactly. Yeah. So like in that case, there some of the propositions might not be able to be come to that ROI type concept like marketing is, I think, maybe.
To Sean's point, though, I think it's like if you're going to go add one because you want to get something, like make sure it's not just to be unique, but it's because you want to like actually have an ROI, or it's addressing a value. I do think that's a valid point to make. It's like your whole team value system is built around this concept, It's like why you were drawn to the team even, right? Like your draw there is also this philanthropy. So it's a great point, versus like just stacking unique value propositions so that you always have one, even if there's no proven ROI. Like real estate is a bit different in that, someone who wants to buy or sell a house is actually more likely, the unique value proposition is you are my second cousin's uncle. Like that is the truth of how our market behaves. It's less, unfortunately, it's less likely to be like you offer me a moving truck as it is to be that I know you personally. And so you have to do, I think it's a really great point, Gishan, like you have to be careful about stacking something just to stack it, because what you're up against in our industry is that someone's more likely to use someone with no experience because they don't see us as a skilled service. They see us as interchangeable. They see us as a commodity. And that is the danger of our industry, is we see it as a skilled service and our consumer does not always see it that way. So we have to either educate them or understand that on some level we are playing a person to person, like a relationship game versus a marketing game.
Is there a figure, you mentioned that, like the skill that's involved in there? Do we have, I think there was an activity somewhere where you can like measure how long the actual transaction takes, as far as like the number of hours dedicated by an entire team, or even if you're a single agent, like from the very start of gathering that lead and qualifying them all the way to the point where, let's say on the buyer side, where they close on that house. What is that time frame of work put in for each side? I think that'd be a good value to show why you shouldn't do it yourself for the FSBO people, or I don't know. Is there figures on that?
back to Megan's, what she was saying earlier, like one of the things my team did, the education part, Megan, one of the things my team did is we actually put every single step, and we had like 200 steps, every single step that happens in a transaction, and we would present it during presentations so people understood this is a skill. They're hiring a skilled agent, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted that to come across. So kind of along what you're thinking, Noah, putting that timeline together, we actually put it together, and we didn't expect them to read through it. What we wanted them to see was like, wow, there's 200 things that my agent's going to take care of for me.
Or to ours, where we were saying like, we're going to physically talk to, like, door knock, phone call, whatever, X number hundreds of people, or spend X, hours doing that, because it's taking it back to, this is a skills-based industry. But again, that's you're in that conversation. It's not something you'd put maybe in an ad, because the average consumer is not thinking of it. They don't care. Like, they'd rather use their Uncle Jim. So you do have to balance that, like what consumers want to know and how they're making decisions in our industry sometimes is not how we wish they were making decisions.
And some of the commercials that are out there from these discount brokerages don't help the situation either, right? They make it sound like it's super simple and all you need to pay is 1%. So they're actually feeding into the lack of knowledge the public already has. They're backing up the fact that they think it's easy.
I guess I want to get back to Noah's question of, are there statistics on really like what the average is of how much a real estate agent with spends, as opposed to maybe a for sale by owner or whatever, or a skilled agent as opposed to a new agent? Or are there any stats like that that could be like, well, we spend 50% more time on average, people spend 20 hours, but we spend 450 hours. So we are making sure everything's handled. Are there?
Yeah. But plus you have to like watch out that positioning too, because right, what you don't want to say is like, we're so bad at it, it takes us.
Yeah, no, I know. Longer. There's a balance. I get that. There really aren't stats of that.
Not that I know about, because I don't know anybody measuring it, but I think you can as a team measure it. Like Paula said, like we had 200. Well, another team might have 50, and 50 still looks like a lot. And in their presentation, that's probably great, but it's hard to know like what the average number of steps is, because it's not like a public database anywhere. Yeah. But I do think there's a way to position that. And then I think too, guys, like there's a way for us to position. It's not as satisfactory to some of us, myself included, but there is a way to position ourselves as being the relationship of choice, which is maybe more industry appropriate than the statistic of choice, and making sure that we understand like our industry is a relationship of choice game most of the time. So 80% of our transactions come from our database. Why? Well, it's because it's a relationship of choice game. So how do you position, what's your marketing say about how you are the relationship they want to have versus the transaction they want to have? So, our unique value proposition is that you are a relationship to us, is not satisfying to me personally, but it is actually a unique value proposition in our industry.
Well, I always wonder too, does a unique value proposition even have to be advertised in marketing? Or could it be just what you do, and it's just your unique value prop that does happen during the transaction, but it's not marketing? The reason I'm saying that is Michael Sharp, their team is dead set on, like, they send out 5 gifts during the closing process. Like, you literally get one at the beginning. As you progress and hit a milestone, like, you get another, and they, like, there is 5 of them. And then at the end is like a finale that they have of a gift that they give you in these baskets and stuff. So for him, I think it's an experience value proposition that he has. So it goes back to too, like, I don't know if it has to be always marketed too. It just could be something you do, like the donation at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do the surprise and delight also. And it's been, we've gotten some really, really fun comments back from the clients. So that's been really fun.
I think
we're going to add the buyer experience starting in the third quarter coming up. So we started listing at the beginning of the year. and that's going so well. We're adding buyers coming up, so really fun.
Zach, I think you bring up a really great point there, is that it's not that it's you spending advertising dollars on advertising it, but your consumers or your customers are going to advertise it for you, right? And that's the most powerful advertisement we can get, because they had such a great experience. And obviously we know what word of mouth does. So yes, it is being advertised. It's just not you doing it.
And Michael Sharps is all about, this was a relationship I enjoyed having. Like the experience was great. So it is kind of pointing back towards the other side. It's an interesting topic because it's a different industry, and it's a different, like, we are commoditized in a different way than, say, like attorneys often are. And so it's a interesting position to take. How do you?
And there's three ways to look at it. And Megan, I know you're a little bit late, but Noah was talking about how he didn't really see the connection between this and the book, which again, you do got to get some creative the way it's looking at it. But we talked about the build, measure, then learn. And then we kind of talked about what that could look like within that. But also, I just wanted to let you know, then we talked about the two hypotheses. We talked about the value hypothesis, like, what do you think your customers are going to value? What are they going to like? And then we talked about how does it grow? And what's the hypothesis around how we grow? Well, what I love about the conversation we just got into is in chapter 10 in this book, if anyone decides to go back and read it, is that it actually would break it down three different ways. It would talk about growth: word of mouth, customers talking about your product with friends, family, and colleagues; observation, people seeing the company's customers using the company's product. So in this case, you would see the moving truck. I would go over and ask, like, hey, you got a moving truck? Be like, yes, because Megan's team helped me do that after I went through a closing process, right? Or traditional advertising that focuses on sharing the cost or less profit gain. So you could do the traditional advertising, like Noah said, a billboard maybe that said, we do this, right? In his gym example, we're the only ones in 3 locations, we're the only one fully staffed, all of the things that went with it. We have over 1,000 classes. Those are things that could be billboard.
Well, I appreciate the discussion there. I know we spent 15 minutes on that. Probably need some time to plan what our next call is going to be on, or do you already have that ready to go?
Oh yeah, dang, here we are at the top of the hour.
We do not have a topic. We have no topic next week.
We have none for next week? Oh gosh.
6-8.
We get to mastermind. What do we want our topic to be for next week?
And pick a new book, or did we pick one already?
Oh, did we pick a book for next month?
We have not.
Let's do it, guys.
Which actually, you guys, that first call is 4th of July week. Do we even want to call that week?
Oh yeah, it's July 5th, isn't it? That Wednesday? Or July 6th, maybe?
6.
So if we decide not to have a call, then maybe we pick a book for August and just don't do a book for July.
Totally down for whatever.
All in favor, say aye. Done. Okay, gavel is dropped. Next topic.
Okay, so we'll pick a book for August, and then what do we want for a topic for next week?
I'm going to throw something out there. I hate to monopolize these, but obviously we're at the halfway point in the year, and I think it's a good opportunity to, obviously, as we always are reviewing and each month, but are there any additional pivots that that you're making as a team? I guess we just talked about shifting and the shifting market. I don't know if that's different on where we are and our goal for the years.
We could have a halftime conversation though, right? Like here we are, it's halftime. Like what are you guys seeing? How are you guys playing defense? where's your offensive strategy coming in to like come out of the year strong. I think it's a great time for a halftime combo.
Noah, Megan's using your words.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because we did a team meeting today, and that was literally the analogy I used was the halftime at the Super Bowl with Tom Brady's team was at 5 years ago or so, and they're down by like 3 touchdowns, and it's like, all right, what do we do? What's that locker room conversation? And I think as DOOs, that's something that we're in charge of, right? Is rallying the team and saying, okay, guys, yes, we're behind, but there's still a half of a game to play. And what are we going to do? How are we going to bridge that gap? And I think there could be some good conversations around that based off of where people are currently standing. For us specifically, we're behind. And we've had a ton of additional expenses this year that we didn't have last year. So our profitability is way lower. So, what is that game plan to, see that ROI, to bring in those new customers, especially in a shifting market, which we've already got some strategies, based off of our last couple of calls on that. So yeah, that's my.
Okay, so this is the title for next week. Halftime locker room conversation.
I love it.
Love it.
All right. We have our topic for next week. Do we want to talk about a book now, or do we want to talk about a book later?
Let's maybe throw out some, since we have an extra long time, like we could throw out some invitations to be thinking about it, and then we could pick next week.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So everybody like think through what would be a valuable read, and we'll bring suggestions to Let's Chat next week. Halftime conversation.
Just bringing the beer and the popcorn and the peanuts.
All right, gang. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.